Hey there, business owner. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Evolution Podcast. This is our weekly episode, and I'm so happy you are here. Let's get started. Hi there, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Entrepreneur Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Annette Walter, and I'm so happy you are here. This week, we are joined by Lauren Asghari, and I have to say she is just simply one of my favorites. Lauren and I have known each other for years, and she is gracefully tenacious and inspiring and such a hard worker, so thoughtful, so kind, and just demonstrates an awesomeness in simply everything she does. I know you're going to love this episode. I'm so happy you're here. There's so many amazing nuggets of information and inspiration within this episode. Enjoy it and let me know your thoughts. I love hearing from you. I love all the DMs, all of the reviews, and all of your awesome comments on the sidelines. So thank you so much for sharing that. Please share this with someone who will enjoy it as much as you do, and keep evolving, entrepreneur. I am so proud of you.
Hello, hello.
Here you are.
I'm thrilled to be here with you, Annette.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. We're going to have some fun today. We are here with Lauren Asghari, who is the founder of the Alderson Loop, which is a forward-thinking provider of information technology, marketing, and creative services. How are you?
Doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Good. You're also the host of the podcast, How'd Her Career Get There?
Yeah. Indeed.
And you've been on the Inc. 5000 list for 3 years straight. You are amazing.
We were proud of that this year to get the trifecta of the third year in a row. So certainly a testament to all of our fantastic employees.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. And I'm going to keep on going. Top 50 companies, women-owned companies in Maryland.
That's another one that we're quite proud of.
Yes, and I could go on and on and on.
It's good. I'm gonna call you every morning to just talk. It'll make me feel good.
Let's do this. Let me just remind you of how amazing you are. Okay. All right. So catch us up to speed. Give us the backdrop of who you are, what the company is. Tell us about you and everything, and then we'll get into kind of real time, real life, real business talk, so we can help some other business owners out there as they are evolving along the way with us.
I love it. So quick backdrop. So I started Alderson Loop in December 2013. So we do, as you mentioned, we do creative and technology project staffing and consulting services. So we're based in Sykesville, which is a little bit west of Columbia, and we service clients Baltimore, DC, and throughout the continental US. So started in December 2013, fast forward to where we are today. We have clients, like I mentioned, across the country. We have had some adjustments made, obviously, with COVID. The fortunate thing about our business is that we're a technology business, so it allows us and our staff to very easily, for a lot of our clients, work remotely. So our adjustment in 2020 has been, I'll say, probably slightly less painful than maybe for some other businesses. But really started the company in 2013. I had come from the staffing industry. That's where pretty much all of my career had been, and really started it because of a combination of primarily personal reasons. I was pregnant. My husband and I, we got pregnant with our first daughter. And I was working 8 to 6:30 pretty consistently with a 45-minute commute on either side. Mm-hmm. And at the time, telecommuting and working from home was not nearly as prevalent or accepted as it is now, even back in 2013. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't really an option for me to continue working or to work from home at all. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to dial back my ambition, but I also really wanted to spend time with my daughter. So ended up really, going to, hey, I can start this business or work for somebody else. It's a little bit closer to my house, and obviously took the leap to start the company. And fast forward, here we are 7 years later. A lot of hard work, a lot of tremendous people along the way helping to build it to where we are today, and hopefully we'll keep growing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I love how you say that you didn't want to dial back your ambition. And I think instinctively that is something that lives within women entrepreneurs, especially because you get to this chapter where you're starting a family, growing a family. And it's almost like something's innately in you. So you did a really great job of making that decision, starting the business. I love how you have niched the recruiting space. So tell us about the importance of really narrowing in on a niche and how that's been beneficial for you and the company.
Yeah, I think I view execution as the most important thing in business, right? At any stage. And that can be whether you're starting or along the growth path. And we're still very much a small business. But the execution piece is really important. And I think it's just easier to execute if you are narrowly focused on delivering a service or a product. And then once you get a client base or a reputation, then maybe expanding or growing where the market takes you or where you see areas of opportunity. But it's really easy to drown in opportunity sometimes. And I even remember earlier on, and even today, sometimes we'll turn down opportunities because it's going to take us too far away from what our core is, and we'd rather be really good at something to build deep, meaningful relationships with customers than try to be all things to everyone.
It's easy to drown in opportunities. That's really good startup advice, right? Because don't you feel almost in the beginning as if you're just so excited, right? So what does it look like now as you're looking at different opportunities that COVID has been uncovering in this season?
So it's interesting, and I love the question. I want to be really thoughtful with how I answer it. There is, I believe, in every circumstance, and as I say this, I feel the need to put an asterisk by what I'm about to say, that I have not had anybody drastically or personally affected by COVID, right? So obviously it's sitting in my seat as I make this comment. It's with deep sympathy and empathy for everybody who have had real tragedy as a result of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I think there is opportunity, and I think there's opportunity in challenging times. And with COVID specifically, or 2020 as a whole, we've had the opportunity to take it as a chance to build deeper and even more meaningful relationships, not only with our staff, but also with our clients and with our customers. So for us, it hasn't been so much about adjusting our service offerings. It's been more about the human side of it, right? And especially, if we go back to March and when the whole thing started and none of us really knew where it was going to go and how it would affect individuals or the economy as a whole, right? It was calling customers and having a how are you conversation, not a, what's your business look like for the rest of this year, right? And I think that's a really delicate line. So I would say in terms of how we've adjusted and opportunities, it's been more building deeper, meaningful relationships versus changing or expanding our service offerings.
Absolutely. And it's a checkpoint. It's, how are you really doing? Like, is everybody okay? How are you surviving homeschooling, virtual, wherever you are, whatever you're doing? And it's really cool to see those different connections happen and those deeper connections happen through something like this. You really grow closer together.
Yeah, and it's this is going back a couple of years, but I remember one day it just dawned on me, you know, business and anything in life, right? It's relationships. So there's not some, unique divider between who a person is at the office or at work versus who they are at home, right? It's just you're Annette and I'm Lauren, right? And we have a relationship and we're having a conversation. And so when things like this happen, to really reach back to the human side of it and understand that whoever's on the other side of that conversation, is a parent or a sister or an aunt, or maybe knows somebody that's going through something that I don't even understand or don't even know about, and to really have that level of empathy to be able to talk with somebody on that human level, I think it's just really important, I think, for business and in life in general.
It is. And that also says so much about you as a leader when you really are that open and real and relatable. And I'm not a big fan of the word vulnerable, but it kind of conveys. It's more that realness that I think is the more important thing. Did you feel that way when you were working for someone else? Or do you think that's just a progression of time? Because I completely relate to everything you're saying. I feel like my former corporate banking self, I was, Annette at work, very, very formal. And then at home, I was like fun Annette and a different person. Now it's me all the time. This is what you get. I mean, you know me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So how about you?
I love that question. It's interesting, and I don't know if it has to do with, I know I have a very clear answer to it in my head. I don't know if it has to do with working for somebody else or if it just has to do with overall growth of me as a professional or as a person, or if it has to do with where I was just at a time in my life when I was working for somebody else. But I did feel like there was a certain way to behave at work or a certain way to communicate it. And I'm in the technology services business, which is, there's a lot of men in the industry, a lot of fantastic men and women leaders. But at the place that I was, I was most of the time the only female in the room. So having that balance of, okay, how do I act like Lauren versus how the way that that gentleman is acting is different than maybe how I would communicate something, but he's getting a result. And if that's my example, then do I need to tailor what I'm doing to act more like that person? And being very much surrounded by men, I felt the need to be very like, I don't know why, this is probably just arbitrary in my head, but felt the need to be very buttoned up, very professional. And then the reality is that when I got probably my late 20s or early 30s, it just went away. I lost the interest in other people's opinions about how I communicated or how I got things done.
Mm-hmm. And it's growth, it's experience, it's knowledge, it's wisdom. And I think we're just getting older.
I know. I think you're right. But oh my God, I think about this all the time. Like if my mentality now is if I had the mentality now when I was 23,
Right.
or 24, it's just an interesting kind of game to play. Like, and I'm very content and happy and thankful and grateful with everything in my life. But I just look back and I'm like, wow, this like no fears, no limits mentality. But I don't know. I certainly didn't get that until I grew up a little bit.
Right. It's like those risks, or knowing that, you know what, like you said, everyone is human and relatable, and it's okay to ask, and don't be timid. And those types of things. Is that, what you're saying? If we had like acted like that or known that I think you just have to grow through that. Don't you think?
Yeah, I know I did, right? So I know I had to. Other people might have gotten that earlier, but it's like the ability to not care what's on the other end of it. And it's also, and I don't know if this is a result of owning a business versus working for somebody else, but I also often feel, I meet people all the time and I'm just genuinely interested in meeting with them and talking with them and just building relationships without an agenda in mind behind it.
Absolutely.
Versus the secret need of like, I feel like sometimes if you're working for somebody else, I don't want to let down my boss. So I feel the need to like push a deal harder, push to make something happen, versus
Right.
now I don't feel that pressure. And I hope that at Alderson Loop, and we are creating an environment where it's about doing the right thing for people, not doing a right thing for just the bottom line business number.
It's so true. And when you're genuinely interested in someone, and I'm just having a flashback from when we were walking in Los Angeles, when we were at one of our conferences. We've traveled together and had a lot of fun. And I think we were having that conversation. It was like, when you pass different people on the street, you're always wondering, like, I wonder what their story is, or, you'd love to hear, how they came here, what they're thinking. It's like that human curiosity, that care, really, that genuine care, which is so great. So speaking of big things in your life and in your business, you recently bought
A,
one.
Two, two different times, buildings, right? That's where you're going, I think.
Two buildings, which is such an amazing accomplishment. So tell us about your thought process of when you started thinking about that and how it really came about, because I think that this is such an important thing. All of the people that I coach, I'm always like, you need to grow your wealth, grow your portfolio, diversify your income, and through smart property purchases, it can be just so productive. So share that with us so we can help some people out there.
Yeah, and so our core business, right? I mean, Alderson Loop at the core, we do technology and creative project staffing, right? So that is where 95% of my energy and time is spent. And my business partner and I've always had, and he has as well, kind of a side interest in real estate. It's always been kind of a passion interest, passion project or passion interest of mine. So when so we were outgrowing our space, and again, you go back to, I look at things as, it's this or that. There's a couple of choices, right? And being able to quickly kind of narrow them down. So we were outgrowing our space, and the question is, hey, we want to stay in Sykesville. We love being in the area of Sykesville. It's a great community. Other companies in our space aren't on Main Street, Sykesville, right? So we're a little bit unique in that space, in addition to being a woman-owned business and some other things that kind of separate us from our competition. And then it really came down to, hey, we can rent, or we can look at trying to buy something to rent to ourselves, and then ultimately, to your point, have it as an asset. And I look at it as, I'm a competitive person. So I played basketball in high school and in college. And I really look at business as an extension of that, as a sport almost to me. And so I look at it as a game with myself. And on the real estate thing, it was just like, okay, here's another way. If we're going to be paying rent to somebody, why not pay it to pay down the mortgage? And then that becomes an asset. And I think for a lot of people, there's always that fine line of risk. I'm pretty risk tolerant. But there's that line of like, well, if I buy a building and I carry a mortgage and then something happens, then I'm in real trouble. And that's an individual decision for everybody to make. But I think for us, it was very much a no-brainer, because we're looking at it in, 15, 20 years, we have then an additional asset independent of our core business.
Right. And it's like, we'll blink, and that will be 15 years just of rent that is really working in your favor. It's amazing. It's amazing. So how does it feel being in the space? Probably a little bit different than you anticipated it, right?
It's funny when you, and this too, right? When you own the building, then you're also the landlord, and then you're also the maintenance person, right? And some level, all of those little things. So it's been awesome. It's been exciting. It's, we had our, a socially distanced optional tour, because our building was finished in the heat of COVID, right? So in May, so we offered people, if you want to come in and see the office, our internal staff, was maybe 10 or 12 people, you come in certain times and you can kind of walk through and see the space. And I found myself, it's just funny when you own something versus renting it, well, make sure that you're putting clean up after yourself a little bit more than otherwise. But it's been awesome. It's a really collaborative space. It's open. We were able to really design it the way that we wanted. And we did it really with our employees in mind, which I think has been the most fantastic thing, and kind of getting their feedback along the way, and really trying to create a space that makes them want to come to work when we're on the other side of this. And that ends up being when people end coming back to the office.
That's great. I love the open collaborative space. And you have a lot of quotes on the wall, don't you?
I'm a big quote person. I'm a big quote person.
You know me, I'm like right there with you. So share some.
Yeah. So we have a bunch actually, and it's funny. We actually just ordered a couple more to put a couple extra. But in each of the bathrooms, we have quotes. We have our purpose and values written very largely on one of our main walls here. Some of the quotes, let's see, off the top of my head. There's a Walt Disney one that talks about give people something that they will want to do or want to experience, and they'll tell their friends. So I love the idea and the concept of looking at other businesses and seeing how it can inspire, be relevant to yours, right? So I look at a Walt Disney quote, and there's not many parallels between IT staffing and Disney World. But I look at it as experience, right? What experience are we giving to clients? Are we giving to candidates? Are we giving to employees that then they will want to tell their friends about us and the experience that they had with us? There's a Sarah Blakely quote, who I know is one of your favorites and mine as well. Just talking about, making mistakes. And so what, you make a mistake, the worst thing that happens is that you learn from it. So I love that one. And trying to really surround the office with those types of things as just an extra level of reassurance is probably the wrong word, but just really trying to send a message to the employees of, hey, give people a good experience, be responsive. And if you screw up along the way, like, okay, that's okay. Like, it is not the end of the world. I've certainly made more than my fair share, and will continue to make my fair share of screw ups. But just make sure that we're learning from them and being thoughtful that the end of the day, the experience of the person that you're giving the service to is really, I believe, the most important thing in business.
So good. So good. So how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I would hope that my team would describe me as fair. The most important thing to me as a leader is to be fair. Fair, kind, demanding, and clear. I think those are probably, and that's certainly, I hope that's how they would describe me, and that's how I'd like to be viewed. That's the type of leader that I'd like to be. I believe that kindness is a very empowering, for me, it's very much my leadership style. I want to make sure that people are clear on expectations, that I have agreement from them that they can meet those expectations. And then if they're not met, that's a different conversation. But I don't believe in strongly dictating, and I don't believe in, threats. It's not my style. And I think that's something that early on was a little bit of an adjustment for me, because it's very core to who I am. I am I don't know how to say it. I am a kind person, right? Like, I want to be nice to you, but but I'm also very competitive, and I'm a driver, and I want to get stuff done. So we've got to be on that same wavelength. But I think there's definitely a balance of being clear and treating people with respect. And I think anybody in any position, you have to be respectful and kind, and also interested in what they care about. It's not just about driving business. It's about driving business to help them also accomplish what they want to accomplish in their personal lives and professionally.
Those are such solid words. And it's, I just adore you, and I am so proud of you. I love your tenacity. I love your drive. It always motivates me. Just being around you feels not only so encouraging and fun and inspiring, but also calming. So you really do wear both those hats so well. It's like this kind, calming presence, but then, deep down, you've got your plan, you're going for it, and watch out, you're going to get it. And I love that about you. I really do.
I appreciate that.
So let's talk about your team. Well, let's talk about hiring. Okay. So what's some advice that you have out there about timing a hire and building a team? Because I feel like that's one thing that business owners struggle with severely, cart, horse, when, how, why, who, and you are in that space and you see it all the time, obviously, with the recruiting. So talk to us about that.
Yeah. I think so it depends on your stage of business, right? But I think the one thing, especially as someone is building a company, is to be very thoughtful. A couple of things. Hiring for your weaknesses, I think, is important, but hiring for your weaknesses does not mean that you don't have to spend the time or do the work to learn. You have to be dangerous enough in every area of your business. I think that's really important. And I think also building as you're growing a business, making sure that you're hiring not so tightly that if something goes wrong, something small goes wrong, that all of a sudden your back's up against the wall and you can't afford that person. Mm-hmm. So, as Alderson Loop was growing, we were really very thoughtful about, okay, when we hit X gross profit, then we can hire a person to do this scope of work. Then when we hit Y, we can hire another person, and allowing for a little bit of cushion in there. Right. And I think that was also really helpful, quite honestly, through the COVID situation. We were very fortunate, very proud that we didn't have to have any major layoffs due to COVID. And mentally preparing, back in March for the fact that we might have had to, it was much easier to do knowing those kind of gross profit and revenue trigger points that allows you to hire up or hire down without drastically putting you or your business in out of business. So I think it's important when hiring to have kind of an end roadmap of what you want something to look like in 12 months, 3 years, and 5 years. I don't do any planning further than 3 to 5 years. And then also making sure that as you're hiring for your weaknesses, but being dangerous enough in everything. And then also making sure that you have those trigger points of when it makes sense to bring on a new person. And corporate culture is extremely important, especially when you're growing a business. If I look back to, our first 3 hires are still here with us, and they've moved throughout the company, and they're all fantastic. And I hope that they're with us for much longer, right? For the duration of this business. But if you look at those first 3 hires, have those been 3 different hires, it could have ultimately affected the trajectory of the company. So a bit long-winded answer to your question, but I think making sure that your combination of not being too aggressive with your hiring for your weaknesses are probably the 2 most important things, and corporate culture.
Well, and I think also saying, being dangerous enough in every angle of your business that, sometimes you probably do this too. It's like, we'll see something and then we'll just go in, get our hands on it, but look at everything and be like, just almost cause like all right, what's happening here? What's going on? What's going on here? And as the owner and CEO, sometimes we have to do that because it takes our eyes, our knowing, our perspective to just go in and look at it and say, wait a minute, guys, like, let's just re-examine this. Do you have those moments?
Absolutely. Well, and I think yes is the short answer to your question. I think I'll call it advantage, right? And it's something that we try very hard to instill in our employees. But the advantage of being the owner or the CEO or executive leadership in a company is that you have visibility into all those things, right? And that visibility allows you to really understand how all the pieces work together. And if somebody is pretty narrowly in their lane, they might be amazing in operations or amazing in sales, but if they don't understand the full life cycle of how the business runs, right, I believe that will ultimately limit their ability to really be exceptional in their job. So I think it's important to make sure that we're giving everybody in the company at least a viewpoint into what other roles are. But certainly as an owner, I mean, if you're not dangerous enough to be able to at some level do it, then you're certainly not dangerous enough to be able to judge if it's working.
Right. Okay, so a couple of more questions before we wrap this up. I mean, this could be so many good nuggets of information here. So tell us about some habits that are your go-tos, and what motivates you, what keeps you going.
So I'll start with the second question.
Okay.
It's as simple as gratitude for me. I am so appreciative for my life, right? And whether it's DNA or how my parents raised me or decisions that I've made as a result of those 2 things, something has put me in the space to just genuinely wake up every day being thrilled to do what I do, right? And that's not to say that, yesterday I had 4 client issues that popped up and it was the day after Labor Day, and that stuff happens too, but in the grand scheme of things, it's gratitude and wanting to expand that and making sure that as this founder, as the CEO, that I am doing everything that I can to deliver for our employees and our contractors and our clients. But it's really ultimately driven by gratitude and the appreciation to even have the opportunity to be able to do that, to have the opportunity to be in a place where you can work with such talented people and wonderful clients. And I really believe, I'm going to share this quick story. I get emails or phone calls of people, or I'll meet them at different work events who have worked for us in the past, or are current employees of ours. And some of the comments, and this is subtle, right? But we put people in jobs, we put people on projects,
Right.
and one woman I remember came to me and said, because of the job that you guys helped me get, it shortened my commute by 45 minutes. I'm now spending time with my daughter more and helping her with, this was a single mom, and helping her with her homework, which now she's doing better in school and she has more confidence. And I'm literally about to cry just talking about it, because a handful of those, the ripple effect of what we do here really matters. And so back to your question about what drives me, like it's that coupled with the gratitude that I'm in a position to be able to even have the opportunity to do that.
Yes.
And as far as the habit piece of it, I mean, I think building in some sort of routine for whatever building in routine, I think is important. And I think follow-up is really important. And when you're talking about growing relationships of any kind, whether it's clients, whether it's employees, follow-up is important, and really being there for people when you say you're going to be there for them, and checking in with them and making sure that you are constantly doing your part in holding up the relationship side. So, from a habit standpoint, my calendar is filled of check-ins of when I'm just calling people to say, hi, how are you? Right. With no particular motive behind it. And then I think also making sure that we build a company and a culture surrounded by habits, and not letting, and it's funny, not letting little things slip really matters, right? So, we were in a meeting this morning, and something on an Excel spreadsheet was not highlighted the way that it was supposed to be highlighted, right? Super small, super like in the weeds.
Right.
And I pointed out, and it's not that I'm trying to be that annoying CEO, right? But it is the point of like, no guys, every little thing that we do matters, and you get a foundation, and then you build and you build and you build. And if anything underneath that becomes loose and we're not doing it the Alderson Loop way, then it ends up becoming, the foundation starts to crumble. So I think building habits personally is really important. Also building habits for your business.
Yes, it's the practice, it's the discipline. And to go back to the single mom that you were talking about, it's really those good vibrations that really, really keep us going. Cue the 90s song. It's good vibrations. Right? Who was that? Who sang that?
I know, I'm singing it in my head, but I can't think of it. Oh, that's the Beach Boys.
That song? No, I was thinking the one that's like good vibrations.
Oh my gosh, sweet Sally. Yeah. I can't think of it.
Feel it. Who
yes,
that? Or Lauren, we need a night out. My goodness.
Oh my God, this is going to bug me that I can't think of it. I know what you're talking about.
It's not CNC Music Factory.
Yes. Good call. I think you're right. We're gonna have to Google it as soon as we get off here. I'm gonna Google it and text you and just confirm. That sounds right.
I remember the CD case right in my head. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about some podcasts and some books that you read. But first, here's a really important question: how do you and I meet Sarah Blakely and just sit down and have 5 minutes with her? Wouldn't that be like a dream? I'm putting that out to the universe for us.
Yes, I think that we should. So it's funny that you say that, because I had a plan in my head and now we can do it together. Oh. I was going to try to and she has a million other things to do, right? But I feel like, I don't know, 200th episode of your podcast, 100th episode, maybe she'll throw you a bone and show up and do it.
I feel it. She's on my list. She really is on my list. And, just what she does, how she shows up, who she is. And she really is an awesome role model for, just what are we in our 40s?
Yeah. Late 30s. Don't add me yet.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, when Annette, either one of us have the opportunity, we'll be sure to grab the other one.
Absolutely. That's a deal right there. Okay. So Sarah Blakely, we're here. We're ready when you are, whatever you want to do, coffee, wine, Olivia Newton-John can join us. That's fine, whatever. Okay. So I know you're a podcast junkie. Obviously your podcast is awesome. I think I've listened to every single episode, hearing the women's stories. I love how you go deep about their childhood and their journeys. What podcasts do you love and listen to, and any good books to share? Kind of twofold again.
I like it. So I listened to I think the guy that hosted is Guy Raz.
Yes.
How I Built This,
yes.
Which is you've listened to that one. I think you mentioned it before. Yeah. So it's just a background. It's just talking to entrepreneurs who've built businesses of all sizes. I mean, the people that he has on his show are like they're billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies. So that's one. I just actually stumbled onto another one 2 days ago. Tony Gonzalez. I think it's called Wide Open. So I didn't know much about him, but he's a former professional football player. I think maybe played for the Atlanta Falcons, but I could be wrong with that. But anyway, he started this podcast called Wide Open. And I'm a couple of episodes into it, but I like it. It's so far so good. So those would probably be my top two of the moment right now, in addition to yours, of course. But
you're sweet. And any good books? Are we a Kindle, or are we a book girl? What are we doing?
I am a book girl through and through. I tried the Kindle. I can't do it. I can't even do audiobooks. And in fairness, actually, let me back that up a little bit. I haven't tried an audiobook. I do podcasts, but something about holding the paper and reading like a nice book, like just that, that's my sweet spot. I like that. So book that I'm reading now is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, which is the founder of Nike.
Yes.
Which so far so good.
Yes. Jennifer Collins just mentioned this on our last podcast. She loves that book.
Did she? Oh my God. I haven't listened. I just saw it pop up yesterday. I have to listen to that one. I love her. I love her. I'm sure that's a fantastic interview with her. So that's one that I'm through, or partially through. And then one of my favorite business books, I read it many years ago, but it was a life changer for me, is Fierce Conversations.
Yep. Susan Scott, right?
Yes. I love that book. And anybody who is having difficulty at work, being direct, or anybody moving into a leadership role, I highly, highly recommend that book. And certainly for any entrepreneurs who, talking about building relationships with still being able to move and push things forward, that book is fantastic.
She has a second book called Fierce Leadership.
Didn't know that. Have you read that one?
I have, and it's really good. In fact, I only remembered it because I just was going through my books this weekend. We were decluttering. And a funny story about that book. So when I stepped in to be the chief operating officer of my former company, literally I kept, because it's like a textbook read. It's not like, it's not a beach read, right? Some business books just flow. This one's like, all right, you got to get out your highlighter and really take notes. So I would keep that book on my desk, and before any tough conversation, honestly, like when it was like, I had to like talk to somebody about something that was confrontational, or I was in a leadership role, and I honestly had just kind of stepped into it, didn't really know what I was doing. And I would pick up that book and like read like the first page and then just use that in the meeting.
I love it. Did you find?
Okay, I'm just going to follow this formula. Done. I could say that.
Did you find over time that you were building that then became like habit as to what you did?
Yes. What I like about that book is that it's peel the onion, keep on asking the clarifying questions. Don't just assume, and just keep on getting to the real root of the problem. And that's what I like about it, is the clarifying questions, not the solution-based, and assuming questions, it's a practice. It really is. It's a discovery. And I think it's something that book really helped me as well. So I'll definitely drop that in the show notes.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because, back to something that we were talking about earlier, being dangerous enough in a whole bunch of different areas. I think sometimes entrepreneurs obviously have the confidence to start their own business, right? So they have deep confidence in some area, whether it's their product or service or general business knowledge, like whatever it is, they have enough confidence to start a business. And being able to get dangerous enough in all the other areas is really about what you just talked about there, which is asking enough questions until you understand something. Until you understand it. Doesn't mean you have to be expert of it, but to be able to have a basic understanding might come from 3 or 4 questions that you're asking to make sure you get it. So I think that's a really important skill.
It is. It is. So how can we help you? And what do you want to put out to your universe? What is your ask? And how can we help you and learn more about you and follow you and do whatever you need right now? How can we support you?
Well, thank you first off for having me as a guest on your show. I love it. I always love catching up with you and talking with you. So I'm glad that we were able to do this. And it feels like I forget that we're like talking or being recorded. I feel like we're just talking. So
I know, it's great.
Yeah. One of the wonderful things about you. I'm mostly on LinkedIn. So Lauren Asghari, Asghari is the last name. That's a good place to find me. I'm always interested in connecting and talking with literally anybody. So feel free to sync up with me there. I don't know if I have an ask beyond that. I mean, be good to each other out there, everybody, right? That's probably it at this moment. If I come up with something better than that, I assure you, I'll come back to you and say, Annette, can you have me on again? Because I want to make an ask. But
that's good. Well, please do. And you know what? We will have you back on again because you're going to be like 10 years Inc. 5000. Well, you're going to be like top 500, 10 years and just made, Fortune, that Forbes. What's the big goal here?
I just want to keep growing. The outside accolades are wonderful, but I just want to keep growing and having a happy employee base. That's it. Those 2 things happen. I'm a happy camper.
Well, awesome. You are doing it. You are doing it well. You are an amazing mom. You are an amazing leader and an amazing friend. And I'm so grateful for you. And I just am so proud of you. And I love, love, love being with you and watching your growth. It's awesome. It's inspiring. It's fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your support.
All right. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. What an episode. Did you learn something new? I hope so. I am so happy you were able to be here with us today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a review and I will be sure to read it and respond to you. Also, if you'd like to email me, my email address is yourock@iEvolveConsulting.com. Hit subscribe and every Tuesday you'll get notification when the next episode drops. We really have some amazing interviews and tips in the future. Anything you need, I'm here for you. I want you to keep your momentum. I want to help you stay accountable. I want you to stay inspired. I want you to evolve.